Hey guys, and welcome to the second episode of Worth It Whiskey. So, just like last episode, I am comparing 3 different whiskeys at 3 different price points and deciding if the price actually makes a difference in the quality of the whiskey. Last episode, I tried 3 different bourbons, so if you missed that video and you're interested, check it out. I'll link to it up here and in the description below. So this week, I figured I'd do something a little bit different but similar and go with American rye whiskeys. Now, rye whiskeys have been around longer than bourbons. They're just kind of now making a resurgence into popularity. Rye was easy to grow and cultivate, so it made sense to be the first American spirit. But with Prohibition, bourbon caught on because there was a lot of corn and rye kind of lost popularity. But it is back and better than ever, I don't know, but it's good. So we have a low price rye, a mid-range rye, and a higher end rye. And I'm gonna try them all back to back and see if the price difference makes a difference. So starting off, the lowest end rye I have is Jim Beam Rye. Now, I actually have never had this before. This is a brand new bottle, so I'm curious to see how it tastes in comparison to the others. This cost me $14.99. Sometimes it goes up to, $16, $17, but overall, it's an affordable rye, and it's one of the better ones. Trust me, I looked for some of the cheaper ryes, and they were really hard to come by, so Jim Beam Rye is probably the go-to cheaper end rye. Second up, we have one of my personal favorites, and it was highly recommended in the whiskey community. This is Rittenhouse Rye Bottled-In-Bond. And this bottle usually runs between $20 and $25. It's really affordable. I was actually shocked by how affordable this is, at least in my area in Southern California. And lastly, we have our higher end rye. Of course, it's not some exuberantly priced thing. It's still under $50 or right around $50. And it also comes highly recommended, and it is Pikesville Rye. Now this is 110 proof, so a good bit stronger than the others, but I'm curious to see how it fares side by side with these 2 other cheaper whiskeys, and to see if the $50 price tag is worth it. So let's get started and pour these whiskeys. So here we go, we have Jim Beam over here on this side and Pikesville on this side. So I am noticing a bit of a difference color-wise with these 3. It almost looks like Rittenhouse is the lightest of the 3. It looks like Jim Beam is like slightly darker than that one. And Pikesville, as with the bourbons, the more expensive one is a darker color, and that may come with age. So since these have been sitting a bit, I'll go ahead and start with the Jim Beam. On the nose, it's sweet like Jim Beam regular, but it also has a lot of the rye spice that you associate with a rye. It's kind of similar to, I've had Bullet Rye before, and it's kind of a similar nose to that. It's still sweet. That's kind of the only notes you get. Sweetness and rye. It smells good though. It smells more flavorful than regular Jim Beam. Also, this is 45% alcohol, which is the lowest of these 3, but still high compared to Jim Beam. So let's give it a taste. I'm surprisingly impressed with this. Pretty good. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting much from Jim Beam. They're typically a really good mixing whiskey, but not a neat whiskey. I gotta say, the flavor of this is right on point. It kind of is very similar to the other ryes I've had. Of course, the finish, isn't amazingly long as they claim, but it's not short. It's definitely like, it lingers on your tongue a bit. This is really good, and I wasn't expecting it to be this good for $15. So let's save a little bit so we can come back to that and move on to the Rittenhouse Rye. Now this has been my go-to rye, as you can tell. I use it a lot in cocktails, old fashions, Manhattans. I just really like cocktails with Rittenhouse. It is from Heaven Hill Distilleries. I tend to like most of their products, so I am glad that I like this one because it's just a really good all-around rye. But let's see if it's actually worth the $5 to $10 difference more than Jim Beam. If it's not, I'm gonna be completely blown away. Wow, on the nose, it literally... Okay, there's a little bit of a difference, but it almost feels like the nose of the Jim Beam is a bit richer, dare I say. This one's still nice, but it's a lot lighter. Like you're getting the same notes, still that sweetness, still that rye spice, but there's almost a little bit more honey as well. But it's still a very light nose compared to the Jim Beam. That's so interesting. Let's see how it tastes. That's the difference. So while on the nose, it is very similar and the Jim Beam almost edges ahead. This, the mouthfeel of it, it completely coats your mouth with these warming fall, I don't know, it just reminds me of fall. These like It's like a baked good around the holiday time. That sounds a bit weird, but if you know rye, you know it is a lot of those spices that you get, typically associated with fall or winter even. There's a lot more going on with the taste of the Rittenhouse, and the finish, it just keeps going on and on. So blindly tasting the Jim Beam before everything else, I was actually thinking that it was actually going to take the win over the Rittenhouse, but now I'm not so sure. So before I make any decisions, let's try the Pikesville, which is many whiskey lovers' favorite rye, but I also paid like almost $50 for it. So like, would I rather pay $20 for Rittenhouse or $15 for Jim Beam? Let's find out. Interesting. On the nose, this is the least interesting of the three. That is so crazy. Like, if you go back to the Jim Beam, it smells so much better. Maybe that's because it's similar to their bourbon. I really like the smell of bourbon, but compared to the three, Jim Beam takes the win on the nose. So let's see how it tastes. That's good. I see why so many people like this. Similar to the Rittenhouse Rye, the taste of it blows away the nose. Even more so than the Rittenhouse, this coats your entire mouth with the flavor. It is a higher proof, but it doesn't really burn in the way that you would expect it to. It burns because of a lot of the spices. It kind of tastes like you just took all the spices from your baking spice cabinet and shoved them in their mouth in a good way. The finish is very similar to the Rittenhouse, and in general, this is very similar. Now, I don't know if I mentioned, but Pikesville is from the same distillery. It's from Heaven Hill Distillery. It's just a higher proof, and it's aged a bit longer. But do I think it's better than the Rittenhouse and the Jim Beam? Let's find out with the results. If I had to pick my worth it whiskey winner for this tasting, it would have to go to Rittenhouse. While this is the mid-range whiskey in this flight, I think it delivers almost as much of a punch and flavor and complexity as the Pikesville. And guess what? This is around $20, $23 at the most I've seen it. This is $45 to $50. Yes, it's better. I'm not going to deny that it's better. It is better. But for the price, Rittenhouse is an amazing deal. It has all of the flavors I love from the Pikesville, but it's half the price. That is a huge factor for me and probably a lot of you. Now, feel free to prove me wrong. If you know a rye that is better than all three, let me know. I would love to try it out. But for now, tasting these three back to back, Rittenhouse takes the win, absolutely. So if you're liking this series, let me know, leave me a like, and if you want to see more, don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the bell button, all that stuff. I love making these videos. It's something that is like a newfound hobby of mine. Drinking as a hobby probably doesn't sound very good, but you know what I mean. So if you missed my bourbon episode, go check that out. I have some other ideas planned, so if you like this video, let me know. Leave me a comment. You know, what is your suggestion for a worth it series to do? Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you checking out this channel and listening to me ramble about alcohol. All right, I'll see you guys next time, and all three of these, drink good bourbon, whether it's your Rittenhouse or your Jim Beam, or if you're feeling a bit bougie, Pikesville. All right, bye.